Now there are so many different options here. You would have no idea how many different options I could show you, but I don't want to waste your time with that. There's two main ones. You can use multiple texture sets, which means multiple sets of UVs here, or what you could do is try to take some of the areas you're not going to really see and make those UVs smaller so we can use more space for the areas that matter. So those are like the main two you could use. Like for example, let me show you that one option. Like right here, let's see, let me find something a bit better. Like these pieces here, you're not going to really ever see. So what you could do is take all those associated UVs and just let's do a smart UV project and just scale those down, make them like a size of a pixel. Like literally, just scale them down. You can just press S and then 0, and now it'll be one single pixel. So there won't really be any resolution here technically, but that's a piece you're not going to really see. So you could do that to areas you're not going to notice, and then use the extra space for other portions, but you want to be careful with that because it will be obvious if someone sees it. Your other option, like I said, is to use multiple texture sets. What we would do is right now we have a UVs material, so maybe the texture set, which is UVs, could go to the bottom portion, and then we can make like a UVs 2 material. Materials and texture sets are basically the same thing. Just if you hear material, think texture set. So this UVs texture set could correspond to the bottom portion, then maybe we get out another material called UVs 2, and that could be the texture set for the upper portion. So now we can use more squares for more area for the bottom portion and more area for the top portion because we have two separate UV squares we can now use. So there's plenty of options here. It's really up to you. What I'm going to try though is the first option, but do I want to do that? Even if we take all these small pieces and scale them down to a pixel, I don't think it's going to be enough to really make a big difference in the resolution here. So what I'm going to do actually is do multiple texture sets. Let's go ahead, add a new material, call this UVs 2, and then basically, actually, instead of doing that, what we can do is take this material and just duplicate it. So you would just click this button right here, and now you have a new one. So you have UVs and UVs 001. Right now, nothing has the UVs 001 material, so what we could do is kind of separate them. So maybe the upper portion could be for the UVs, and the bottom portion could be for the UVs 001. And you can tell nothing's being used because we have this 0 next to the UVs 001, which basically means that nothing is being, this material is not being used on anything. So if you see a 0 there, the material is not really doing anything. So what I'm going to do is rename this low to low underscore upper, and then I'm going to make a new collection and call this one, make sure it's outside of it, low underscore lower, like that. So basically what we can do is take the upper portion, the bottom portion, and move those into the lower collections. So we'll just go through here. We could even just, do a quick box select like that. Cheat it a bit. We'll press M and then move to the low underscore lower and turn it off temporarily. We can move these as well. Same with these, and maybe, I don't know. Maybe this one. And these pieces. And maybe these little things right here. Let's go into top view and do that. And then same for these pieces. And these pieces. And these ones as well. Cool, so now we have the low underscore upper and the low underscore lower. See that? Cool, so now what we can do is take one of these pieces, any of them on the bottom, give it the UVs 001, and then if we right click on the low underscore lower and select the objects, what we can do is click this and then copy material to selected. So now everything here has the UVs 001, so the second texture set. Awesome, so now check this out. If I hide the upper one, now if I unwrap this, we're going to have so much more resolution to work with. In this case, we're going to have to fix these up right here, but we will once those are fixed. So if I unwrap this, ideally the squares should get lower, but they're not because of whatever these are. So let's, I think those are the springs again. So what I'm going to do on these springs actually is try to split these up all the way down. So maybe like every few, we could just drop a new seam to kind of split it up. Like that, and then same for here. Every few, we could just drop a new seam. Control E, mark seam. And it's still pretty long, isn't it? So what I'm gonna do is, let's take both of these springs and just literally give every single piece a marking, because we're not gonna really see it when we texture it, so I'm just gonna cheat it. Cool, that works, and we can just unwrap it. And now we have a much, much better solution. Notice the squares are now a lot smaller because we have more space to work with. Cool, so it's the same exact idea for the low underscore upper. Just gonna unwrap everything. You're gonna see, much better. We still have this really long strip right here, so I think I forgot to put a seam on this one, not a big deal. We just drop a seam on the back. And there we go. See how much more resolution we have now? These are almost half the size, which is good. The smaller the checkers, the more resolution we have for our textures, which is exactly what we need. So now you're going to see, this is a much more ideal unwrap. So once again, just to show you the difference here, if I unwrap everything onto one single UV square, you're going to see it basically doubles the checker size, which means, you know, half the resolution is being lost. So we don't want that. I say half the resolution. What I mean is if you go from here to here, you're doubling your resolution. And that's amazing. Well, roughly, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, right? But roughly these squares are now half the size as these ones, right? So that's kind of what we want. We want to make sure our resolution is as high as possible. Now you want to be careful. You don't want to use too many texture sets because you can easily run into memory issues. Each texture set you have means it's an additional set of textures that will be exported in Substance. So when we, export this to Substance, we're going to have a UVs material and a UVs 001 material, which means this one's going to have the base color, roughness, metallic maps, AO maps, all that. And this one's going to have the same thing as well. And if you're working with like 4K or 8K textures, that's going to max out your memory, especially your VRAM in Blender. I remember on one of Ryu's scenes, he was trying to like go overkill on his 3090. He had like several 8K textures. He had like 3 or 4 texture sets with 8K textures, and he got like 23 gigs of VRAM out of 24 used. It was like, and keep in mind the average graphics card has 4 to 8 gigs of VRAM, so that's saying a lot. So needless to say, you want to use, 1 or 2 texture sets if you can, and you also want to use 2K to 4K textures to really get that optimal level of memory usage. So in this case, 2 texture sets will be fine, and you shouldn't, even if you have like a weaker machine, you should totally be fine to texture both if you're using 2K or 4K textures. So I think this will be fine. The resolution looks good, but what we do need to do is make sure we get as good of a pack as possible.